Hello, this is your video tutorial on how to use the critical thinking skill to analyze. Let's start with the definition first. Analyze, it's a verb, it is an action word, and it means to study something closely and carefully. I like to use the analogy of taking something that's whole and breaking it apart and looking at each of the individual parts separately and learning how those parts work together to create that whole. So, analysis is taking something and looking at all the individual parts and how those parts work together to create the whole. How do you analyze in English class or in literature? Well, we do a lot of analysis in here. So when I tell you I want you to analyze something, these are some examples of things I'm going to ask you to analyze, where you're taking that whole and you're breaking it apart. So a book cover. So if you were going to analyze this book cover, you'd look at the picture, you would look at the text, what's written, the colors that are used. Notice it's black and white picture, but the title is in red and blue. Any awards that have been given, or the location of anything that's placed on the cover. Why do you think the author put the title of the book sideways like this right down the middle of the picture? Okay, so that's one way. When we talk about character analysis, think about all the different ways you can analyze a character to see how that character works. These are just a few of the dozens of ways you can analyze a character to see how they have changed and who they are. You can analyze a symbol both by looking at its physical appearance, what is the object literally, and then what is the concept or the emotion, the figurative meaning of that literal object. You can look at its connection to the theme, how the characters interact with that symbol. How do they use it? Where do they find it? When is it used? When does it come up? And how it's used as a plot device. Like, how does it help to move the story forward? When we talk about analyzing a theme, that's looking at relationships that involve the main character, because usually within those relationships, you can find a general idea of a theme: love, hate, anger, jealousy, any of those things. You want to look for advice from an older character to the main character. When we looked at signposts for for fiction, that's called words of the wiser. So you're looking for a parent, grandparent, coach, teacher, somebody who's older and more experienced who's giving advice to our main character. Quotes, things that characters say, any symbols, the character development, how we see the character, usually the main character, how he or she changes throughout the course of the story, how the plot is structured, where the story begins, and the rising action, the climax, and then the falling action to the resolution, and any flashbacks. Flashbacks are something to look at as well. When we talk about analyzing a book, you're going to take a lot of what you saw here: the book cover, characters, symbol, theme, the exposition. That's where you get the setting and introduction of the characters, any background information, character development, the writing style. You look at all of that when you analyze a book. And then we will also be analyzing writers, just how they do their craft. We're going to look at organization, how they started their like what's at the beginning of the writing, what's in the middle, what's at the end, what sequence did they put the information in, any repetition that they do, because writers generally don't repeat themselves unless it's something important and they want us, the reader, to pay attention to that. We're going to look at sensory language, also known as imagery. So imagery, those are words that make you use your five senses. So something that you can see, you can hear, you can taste, you can touch, and you can smell. We're going to look at verb tenses. Are they active verbs? Are they passive verbs? Are they present tense? It's happening now. Is it past tense? It already happened. Future tense? It's going to happen. We're going to take a look at diction. Diction's just a fancy word for word choices. So what kind of words does the writer use? And then syntax, that's another fancy word that just means the organization of a sentence. What comes at the start of the sentence? What's in the middle of the sentence? What's at the end of the sentence? How does the writer craft these sentences? Do they start with a transition? Do they start with the subject? Do they go backwards like Yoda and start with the verb? Okay, so those are all different ways that we will be analyzing in English class. Once you understand how to analyze a book cover, you can analyze all kinds of things. If you're having problems with your engine in your car, you can take apart in your mind all those different parts of the engine to try to figure out where the problem is. If you're trying to analyze whether your outfit is appropriate, again, you can take apart what you're wearing and look at each one and determine, is this the appropriate type of outfit for this particular event, or maybe it's not appropriate. So analysis is a really important critical thinking skill, and it's probably the main one that we focus on in English class.